AJ Lee, welcome to eTown. So good to hear you and your band. My gosh, you guys are, the kids can pick. You guys have been doing this for a while. It's awesome.
Yeah, yep. Been doing it for many, many years and just having fun doing it too. That's the reason why we do it.
It's interesting because your band is so versatile and so talented. You could go in almost any kind of direction. You've got the gypsy jazz and the western swing and the bluegrass and the country and the Bakersfield and all that stuff is kind of coursing through your repertoire. Is it hard for you as a songwriter? I guess it means that whatever you come up with is going to work for your band. Whatever kind of song you write is going to be okay.
Well, in theory.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. I think, well, what happens is sometimes, I'll write something maybe a little bit out of the box and I'll bring it up and we'll all be like, nah, we can't do that. And then I'll recycle it maybe like 2 or 3 years later, be like, let's try this again, and we'll give it another shot, and somehow we like twist it and turn it into a way where somehow it always ends up working out.
Yeah. What is it that makes a song not work? Is it is it because it's a ballad or just chord changes, or it just feels like, what are some of the things that make it not feel like it can work in your band?
Well, I'll give an example. We're doing a song that I wrote called Sick on a Plane now.
Oh, there you go.
That I wrote several years ago.
Yeah.
And, it's just this goofy, silly experience.
Yeah. It's a youthful song.
Yeah, it's very youthful, very kind of almost maybe like metal-y kind of sound. So, that's one of those I really had to do some convincing in the band.
I can see that. Yeah, if you go sort of all the way to thrash metal, you might actually might not go with it.
Yeah, you can try to do every genre, but it doesn't always mean you should.
I know you weren't sick on a plane recently, but I will just mention that you had a hellacious trip out here to Colorado because your flight from Boston was canceled. Mm-hmm. You had to, rent a car?
Yeah, well, so our flight was supposed to be, I think, at 6:30 p.m., and, we got to the airport around, 4 to drop off cars and do what we needed to do. And then 11 o'clock comes around, and they're like, it's canceled. And there was no other flights out of Boston or anywhere except for one that our manager ended up finding in Philly. So we're like, how are we going to get there? We rented two vehicles. We got one for 2 of us and then one for 3 of us. And we drove 5.5 hours to Philly to catch an 8 a.m. flight and got to Denver at 10:50 and then played a show at 5.
And then slept later.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if that happened yet.
Oh,
we also stayed up late last night jamming.
Wow.
So.
Well, the touring is made for the young. That's a good thing. I don't know if you remember this, but I saw you play probably 10 or 12 years ago, so probably when you were about 12, I guess, playing with the Tuttles at a festival in Oakland. And I was just really impressed with the whole scene, and that must have been kind of cool to be invited. I mean, you knew those kids, and so to be invited to join a family band must have been kind of a surprise and an honor.
Oh, it was definitely an honor. Since I grew up with most of them, Sully and we became friends. I think around seven or 8. He's about 2 years older than me, so we grew up playing music. So. My concept
he's
of
in your band now.
Yeah. And the concept of who's who and who's cool and who's not didn't really faze me at 7 years old. But I realized, after playing music with, the Tuttles for so long, I was definitely in the presence of some cool people from a really young age. Yeah. So it's always been a pleasure playing with them. And
also being in Northern California, I think you're also exposed to other songwriters and people who kind of straddle the line between bluegrass and not necessarily folk music, but people like Kate Wolf and Lori Lewis and other women who are writing songs and playing. And I wonder if that was an inspiration or a connection that you made when you were coming up?
I've definitely listened to a lot of the women in bluegrass, and my biggest influence actually has been my mom, because the way I got into music is she played a lot of country music. And she wanted to teach me, how to sing from a young age. And I remember we listened to some Buck Owens, some Merle Haggard, and, strayed a little bit from the genre to some Bonnie Raitt here and there, But my mom has been my biggest influence, and
that's cool.
especially in my songwriting. And I don't know how much she likes when I say this, but I think she's definitely my worst critic. So every time I've had a song, I'm like, Mom, what do you think of this? I'm just like, oh, I just want her to say she likes it. She's always like, that's really good, but this line here, you could say something else, or this line here, you could say something else. And to this day, I've always appreciated how much feedback that my mom would give me, and not just just support. She always supported me, but she always wanted to help improve what I wanted to do, so I could be great in anything that I wanted to do. Was their view.
The tough love worked.
It sure did.
Yeah. And am I right that your grandfather was like a stride piano player in the sort of Fats Waller tradition?
Yeah. Where'd you find all this information?
Hey, listen, I do a little sleuthing around. There's this thing called the internet that you kids.
That's true.
You kids probably
There's
know
a lot
about
of stuff on the internet, though.
Yeah. But it's funny because when I saw that, I was like, wow, that also could have been a direction for you to be fascinated by, because that's a deep, deep bunch of music there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom's side of the family has always been very musical. I didn't really get to experience time with her dad very much because he died before I really got to be a person. So. But my Uncle John, too, he's also a fantastic, jazz pianist, singer, songwriter, all that.
Yeah. Hey, in case you just tuned in, you're listening to eTown here with A.J. Lee. So this trajectory that you're on now, it seems like things have picked up in the last couple of years. So you've been doing some recording, you've been doing a bunch of touring. COVID was a bump in the road, but an opportunity for you guys to kind of figure out what you want to do next, I guess.
Yeah, I think actually COVID, it's, you always get thrown these, loops in life, and, it's always how you make a turn of it. But at least with COVID, when all the musicians were, we were doing the live streaming thing, and everyone had to figure out how to be a computer engineer all of a sudden.
Right.
While doing those live streams, we got to create a fantastic community. Like nationally, internationally, we developed more fans on the East Coast. So in a way, it was, kind of the bright side of the pandemic, getting to connect with a lot more people across the nation.
Yeah. Did you in fact move to Nashville?
I didn't. I never did.
You never did?
No, I think...
You were gonna.
Yeah, this is kind of a funny situation because... So I live in Santa Cruz now, in California, but I lived there for a few years previously. And I was doing some interviews, and Molly had just moved to Nashville to do, more solo stuff. And the question popped up, oh, well, you think you might, follow in Molly's footsteps and go to Nashville, that whole thing. And I believe I was always positive. I was like, yeah, I could see myself moving to Nashville. Like I could do that, but I never had real plans to go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everyone's like, she's moving to Nashville.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were in Nashville. Where'd you go? I'm like, I've just been here the whole time.
Yeah. I read another thing during my deep dive into your data, which
the archives.
Yeah. No, I just read. You said a funny quote that stuck with me, and I'm not going to get it exactly right. But you basically said something like, "Well, I don't want to become another Taylor Swift and just write songs about breakups." and I would say some might argue Taylor Swift is kind of crushing it.
Everyone's got their thing. If you're good at writing breakup songs, you're good at that. But I think I kind of know where you're coming from. I think I like being a little bit different, playing the mandolin, and not just being a woman who sings about their relationships and strums the guitar and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that being said, Taylor Swift is crushing it.
Yeah. Well, also you came up in Bluegrass, and there's a lot of happy songs about murder and death. So it's like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You can handle that stuff too.
Yeah, I was birthed into a path already.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm so glad you got a chance to stop by. We're anxious to hear some more music. Thanks for coming to eTown.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Welcome back, if you would. A.J. Lee from Blue Summit.